How's it going, everyone? It is Thursday, September 26th, 2024. Let's get into the picks from the last video. I gave WBA as a swing short and INTC as a swing long if we got a buy signal on that. So here's WBA. Ended up taking this guy. End of the day around 1832. Stock is up a little bit today on a down day, which is not obviously ideal. But we're in this bearish channel here. You can see how the stock was actually in one bearish channel, broke through the downside, and now has sort of formed a new channel and is accelerating through that. So you can look at it in a couple different ways. So we're getting a bit of a bounce here, but want to see us hold this double top and eventually start to claw through the low of the day. We may get some help in the market later in the day. So not too worried about that right now. I'm willing to give this guy a little bit of room. INTC. So still waiting on a buy signal on this guy. So you have a sell signal, an exit signal, another sell signal, but no buy signal triggered yet. So we're testing this downside today. We filled in the gap pretty quickly. So on that buy signal, I think we could have a nice setup here, but obviously we need to see that this 50 SMA has to hold. Got tested yesterday, got tested again today. So if we can hold and start to inch up forward, see some nice buying on heavy volume, I think we're in business. So INTC, no setup yet, but we're going to keep it on our radar. So let's zoom into what is going on for the market today. We got a gap up overnight to a new all-time high, a marginal new all-time high, and it was really driven by MU earnings. MU had really high, well, I want to say really high earnings, but it had a very favorable reaction to the earnings. And the main thing that we kind of saw here was this stock has been fairly beaten down compared to a lot of other semis. And so there's a good chance for an upside surprise. So that's what we saw in MU. And after that gap up, stock is slowly starting to sell off. If we look at a lot of other semis, you can notice that they will probably have a similar kind of pattern. Actually, some of these are looking pretty good. Microchip looking pretty good, but Nvidia gapped up. I don't think SMCI gapped up. Nvidia gapped up, filling in that gap. AMD gapped up, filling the gap a little bit. We already talked about INTC. TSM, a little bit in that category. AVGO, MU, obviously leading the charge up. That's a nice move up here from TSM. That would have been a nice little swing over here. So that was kind of leading this big gap up overnight. Now, fundamentally, nothing has really changed. Technically, nothing has really changed, but we do have this little gap up. We want to see how the price action is on that move down and see if just we want to be wary if there's any sort of big bearish engulfing candle. Right now, it doesn't feel like that's likely, but if that does happen, that would put us on a big yellow flashing caution sign that says, hey, be careful if you have long swings. So I actually had a swing long on SPY and QQQ, and I took profits on both of those on the open. I took it on that breakout over here. QQQ, you can see, is already filled in the gap after breaking out of this wedge a couple of days ago. So let's zoom in now to our M30 chart on a shorter term time frame. What's happening here? Well, we had this weak drift up, big gap up here, and then we're starting to fill in that gap. But M30 is not very interesting. I think the M5 is going to be a little bit more interesting here. So gap up in the open, red candle to start, and that red candle says, hey, it's not overly bearish, but it's mildly bearish on a gap up. So a little red candle, then we get some fighting over here, some tails below body. The volume is fairly low compared to what it should be, or I guess compared to the average. Pokes here, and we see some fighting around the prior all-time high. So this is where we expect to find some support, and this is where we'd want to find some support before taking long. So let's go back in time here. So We're seeing this setup, and this is looking pretty decent. We still have the bear cycle to complete, but we got some nice volume coming in, almost one of the highest volume candles of the day. And then we start to push up a little bit higher, and then we get a big red engulfing candle smackdown. So this is a bit of a warning sign, and I'll actually highlight that with a trade I took and sort of how I managed this trade, even though it is up right now. So I actually took MSTR long here on this pullback at 1040. So I was like, hey, look, if we start to get something going, MSTR is crypto, so it kind of does its own thing. I know it's a little bit resilient to the market. Market was poking down here, and I said, I don't like that as much. MSTR is holding on, and you can see it's forming some high tails above body. We're not able to get a very, very new high. We're not able to react and savor this candle. So this 1040 candle, I think, was good. This 1045 candle, not as strong. And then I actually took profits on the open of this candle here. It pretty much took a scratch on the trade. And then market sold off. MSTR had a big move down, and then it actually bounced back pretty strongly, which was nice. But you could have easily panicked and gotten flushed out of this candle right here. I mean, that is a $5 move on that stock, so that's a decent move. Market does start to rebound, and so does MSTR. So we get this move down. We get some follow through into the gap. We find some support. I don't want to say halfway into the gap, but partially the way into the gap, which surprised me a little bit. I thought we would have a little bit more momentum to fill in the gap, but we start to stage a little bit of bounce, and now sellers have coming in and try to knock it down here. And here is where we are. We established some support around 571, and now we're testing that support. So if we can get a break through this support, maybe flush out some sell stops, we could probably fill in that gap. So that's what I'm leaning towards. It could be a slower gap fill kind of day. And if I draw a downward sloping trend line, you see that's been sort of breached to the upside, but also not really. We've kind of poked above it and came back below it. So that's kind of another thing I'm leaning on here. One thing to do, you can kind of make sure you don't get too crazy on some longs, is wait for at least a close above that 8 EMA on SPY. You can see on a bearish trend day, it's really staying below that. Obviously, the gap up is going to skew that in the beginning. But if I just draw this trend line right here, okay, we poked above over here, got slapped down. So far, this is holding for the day. I'd like to see us get through this candle. Now, here's a positive sign that we could potentially be shifting. There's a couple scenarios that can happen. So the bearish scenario is that break through these stops and fill in the gap. And then the really bearish is we actually start to get through the low of the day here. And this bounce gives us what we need. Now, so far, it doesn't seem like we're going to get that. Because there has been buyers kind of nibbling here, nibbling here, nibbling here, nibbling here. So there are buyers over here, but if they can't get anything going and they really start to kind of throw in the towel later in the day, then we could see a nice little late day sell off, probably in the PM. So probably in the next, maybe the last 2 hours to 90 minutes, something like that. That's one scenario. That's kind of the bearish scenario. The LPTE scenario that could also happen here is that we kind of bounce off and maybe we just chop around between here and VWAP, and we don't really do anything. We just kind of work off this selling pressure in a sideways motion over time. So that's the LPTE case. I think that's decently likely here. It depends really if we break through this level or not on this attempt. The bullish case here is actually, I think we hold this level. This ends up being the low of the day, and we're able to get a nice rally up here through VWAP on some stacked green candles. I'm looking for something maybe like this, right? This kind of move up. Some very steady buying here, steady green candles, not a lot of mixed candles, some decent volume on these as well. So that's what I would be looking at on the bullish side. So right now, didn't do a whole lot. I took one win on BABA earlier today, so I took it right here on the breakout. You can see here, and I'll walk through this day trade setup before I give some picks for the day. So BABA, big gap up from Chinese stocks. Gap up, tested the bid once, tested it again, formed a higher low while the market is selling off. So here's the market at 11. and now started to rally a little bit, and then it broke through the high of the day on this candle. We were still pretty weak, so I wanted to make sure we held on this candle at 1140, which we did. So took the 1140 candle, and then I took profits into strength here on this pop-up. So that was a nice win. Chinese stocks also tend to do their own thing. Didn't want to overstay my welcome in a market that was weak, so took a nice little win on BABA. Okay, so what are some potential trades that we can do? What are the setups that we'd like to see? Well, first, I'd probably be more willing to trade the bullish side over here rather than the bearish side. And the setup that I'd be looking for is maybe, in this case, we're getting later in the day, so some sort of like parabolic pullback. So we get a stock that maybe is going up like this, pulls back here, and the market, because the market selling is strong, it's just enough to trigger that LRSI alert, and then we snap back higher. Actually, been making a day trade list here. So something like this, right, would be a great example. If we get this nice move up higher, come back over here, and you get in on that pullback, that would be a really great entry point. So something like that, and this happens later in the day, right? The last 2 or 3 hours of the day. The other one that I could see is some sort of like triangle here. So we get a nice move up here, digest some of the gains, we get the breakout, and then we move higher. You can see also, I'll say that, yeah, here's the setup that I traded. On similar setup I traded to BABA, you can see we get the gap up. What would kind of move down here, check the bid once, and then we're kind of off to the races, and then we rally up higher. So that is some of the setups we're looking for today. I'm going to flip through a couple of charts. Let's take a look at what we like over here. Ideally a stock that is just kind of compressing and holding the gains. UAL has been nice. Airlines have been pretty nice today. I did talk about MSTR. It's looking decent. On MSTR, what I would like to do is we're hugging the high of the day here, which is really nice. I would like to see it break through that high of the day. And on the breakthrough, then we could probably make some money on that candle. Now, we need the SPY to hold, and we need the market to start to go up. So that's one setup I like. We'll see what ends up being my pick of the day. DAL, pulling back a little bit, still pretty strong. Probably testing this breakout candle. So I'd wait for, I would say an HA reversal. But yeah, I mean, just get a nice little close, maybe above this level here. You can start to get in on DAL. But not a lot of momentum in that stock, so not crazy about it. WW is nice, but the price action is garbage. And all of these D1 charts are already vetted. HUN, I did call that out actually in the chat a lot earlier. Beautiful setup on this stock. You can see how broke through the high of the day. We got the breakout right here at 1110, and the stock has been steadily grinding up higher and higher on some very nice price action. And this is a nice breakout through this high minus trend line, long-term D1 reversal. So this could be a pretty decent swing pick, I would say, as it gets through a lot of these levels. And definitely a choppy stock, but some nice volume coming in here. Really nice reversal setup on this. There's MSTR. Yeah, so we're going to wait. We have a bit of a potentially 1OP bearish cross. So let's see if we get any sort of bounce and we kind of hold this level on SPY. But I think the pick of the day, yeah, I think I'm going to go with MSTR on a close above this level, and SPY holds the low of the day. So that's going to be our day trade pick for today. Thank you all for watching, and let's take a look at what the market and MSTR do.